like to do is find, with my left hand, I'm right-handed, holding my pencil in my right hand. With my left hand, I'm going to find the middle of the paper. I'm just going to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be measured. Never put your horizon line in the middle of the paper. It cuts it in half and it makes it very unappealing. So I'm going to go up a little bit, just a little jump like that, and that's where my sky is going to end. So I'm going to bring my pencil in. Remember, I'm doing it dark here and on. And just make a really gentle hillside. It can be any shape that you want. These are California hills, so we don't have tall mountains. So we're looking over at Mount Mountain. We just want to have rolling hills. And I'm going to come down a little further. And I'm going to do another. Make sure it's not in the very center. I want to come down. And I don't want it to follow the same either. And again, it does not have to be any particular line shape. It's just a little bit wavy. Okay, so, and I'm going to do sort of an S curve, and I don't want it to come to the bottom or come off the side. So I'm just going to kind of curve it like that. And then I'm going to draw my other side of my symbol. Okay. Now, as I paint, you're going to see my pencil line because I kept it pretty dark. Yours should be light. If I can make more or less as I go, and I don't want to go straight across. It should be a little bit higher on the right side, getting lower as we come down to the left side. There is some bright yellow in our poppies, but mostly orange. And this we did that kind of fast. Then we're going to go a little bit farther with smaller dashes. And the paint is starting to fade after my brush. This is farther away, so that's perfectly fine. If it's too faded, then just get some more paint. Now, I don't feel that I want to even wash my brush out because it has a little bit of yellow. And I'm going to take my other orange, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just slowly sweep these in, changing the direction of my brush. I don't want them all to be exactly the same. I want a lot of open white paper. Now, we know that a poppy is a V-shaped, so you can kind of think about that, and you can see as I drag my brush, see how they almost look like poppies already. And thinking about smaller as you get further away. Now I'm running out of paint here, so a little bit more. It's perfectly fine to go straight from the tub here onto your painting. It's just thicker and darker, and I tend to like to save that for later. I like to work from this puddle. And that's my personal choice. Building up a bit more orange here and there. Okay. Catch up, get to the end here. And I'm using just the tip brush. Doesn't come farther out here to make some little strokes, just the tip. As you can see how slow I'm just using that tiny point. And that's why I like round brushes, because I can press it down and get this larger shapes. And I can use just the tip there for the small. All basically a bunch of birds on the video. Basically just V shapes, which is poppy shape. It's okay to go right off the edge of the tape. And I have just standard masking tape. If you have painter's tape, it's great. You can use just specific tape for watercolors that is supposed to remove easier. And you can see how this is starting to blend together. That's okay, that's fine. It already looks like a poppy field. Alrighty, now I haven't even touched my darker one yet. I'm going to grab that now, and again, I didn't wash my brush. These are all friendly colors. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that in the tip of the brush. I like that medium light one better. This is a little red for me, so I'm not going to use very much of it, but I'm going to get some in there, just a little bit. You're in control of your colors. As an artist, you want to make decisions that please you. And if your palette is different than my palette, if you know, it's just like tastes. palette is what holds your paint. Palette's also lovely. That's so funny. If your choice of colors, your palette is different, if you want more yellow, go for it. It's your paint. And I'm always just working a little bit of water into this piece to become nice and loose. All right, now we're going to move around to different areas so that we can let this dry. But before I do that, because yellow is such a bright color, we can't put yellow over green. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, and this is pretty watery, and I'm just going to sweep a couple of areas where I might like to have another stand of wildflowers like this. This one got a little bit, which is fine too. It still looks like nature. So I'm just going to do a little bit of yellow here and wherever you say. We don't want anything in the background. That's going to be too far away to see the colorful flowers. But you can have some little decorative flowers and shoots. If I change my mind and just want to get that outside, I can do that and cover them all with so clean my brush really well, and I'm going to stop it. Hopefully let you catch up. Just give me a couple minutes or 1 minute, and we're going to move to the side. So if you have a lot of orange, let me show you the water. That is really dirty. I don't want to introduce this dirty orange into my clean blue sky. So it would be good to dump that and get fresh water. I always keep 2 tubs of water for that reason, because when I'm teaching, I can't dash over and dump. But take the time, dump your water whenever you want. Do it rather quickly and use a lot of water. Not so much that it's soggy, but sweep the water across in your sky. It's perfect. It doesn't matter at all. Go all the way to the tape. Come down. Just sweep across so you know your water. If you look from the side, you'll see there's a little reflection. It's quite wet. Okay. Now I need to work rather fast because everything's wet, especially on a hot day. It's going to dry. I have 2 blues. Doesn't matter which blue you use. I'm just going to grab rather fast. And I'm going to go across. Look at that. So it just leads down. Already, that looks fantastic. I'm just going to bring it down. And then I'm going to take the water and I'm going to bring this down back and forth. Keep your strokes flat. If you stroke in a different direction at all, it should be like a smiley face, just slightly. Adds to the perspective and dimension. And you can see how it's dark at the top and it gets light down here. That's what we see with our atmosphere. It's always darker, the sky's darker at the top, and it's lighter as you get closer to the land. It's still quite wet, so it's safe for me to add a little bit more blue if I want, switch to the corners. Now you can see I have a little buckle there. Don't let that stress you. Just throw it. It'll end up being now, I'm going to throw in a second color. You do not have to do this. If you want a lovely blue, just keep the sky and stick with your blue. So, this time I'm going to take my purple and play it here because I really like it. I don't want it to look very pretty. Lots of fun. And that's still super wet. So now I'm going to come in with my paper towel and lift. Roll this into a ball. The excess should go in your hand. It shouldn't be dragging. And I'm just gonna lift. And if you have a lot of paint, it would be more dramatic. If you have less paint, you can see here, I've got that little funnel cloud going on there, and that looks good to plan. So I'm just gonna block that out. The clouds can go right off the top of the paint. Now, fond of them. If I can control them and not have them, I'm much happier with my final work. So I'm going to let this dry before I introduce a little more color. And I will darken the sky a bit, especially on the top. But you can see I have a gradation down here. Darker blue, medium blue, a little bit of light white where the clouds are. That's the purple closer to the horizon. Notice, so there's going to be more opportunity to fade. Another thing is, I just did it, it's a very bad habit. your brush in your water like that, because you will hit it and it'll spray. I've even poured whole waters onto my finished paintings. So very bad habit. Also, it's bad to brush. Okay, we're gonna move into the greens. Just this around, but you can see how I'm not giving it too much thought. And all of these areas that have white, and there's a difference, they're not all just one color. They didn't just flood that hillside. I think it's a lot more natural looking when you have something like this. And what's naturally starting to happen is maybe there's another hillside in front. Okay. A little more dark back here. And I'm laying my brush sideways this time, so it's able to just kind of skip away. And it may end up being two hills. For me, I think this ended up being two hills. So here's how I'm going to exaggerate that. I'm going to take my dark green and put the dark back. You can see now I have one hill here, I have a lighter. It's very subtle, that's okay. I can add that and make it a little more contrasting later on. Just to that back hill. Okay, now I'm going to come forward, and you can skip over this road that's going to be brown, but if you end up with green in it, it won't hurt at all, because brown is a darker color. So again, a very wet brush, some of that nice bright green, and I'm coming forward, so things are going to be a little clearer, a little brighter. Make sure you can see and around these orange areas. And again, skipping with the brush so that they're down here. I'm doing it in a bit of a curve, a little smiley face curve. And then I'm going to take my little tip of my brush and just put a couple little green dots so that looks like flowers in there, not just a massive flower. So there is going to be green. Just dotting, creating texture. I've left this area blank, which you can check a little bit. Okay, now we're going to move down to this last section that's coming forward. Now we're going to start introducing some greens into this top of the field. So I'm going to get my darker green too, get that ready to go. Light green. Okay. So make sure it comes down and that your edge of your top of the field is uneven. It should be high and low, high and low. It shouldn't just be a straight line across. So your greens, just come down into that. It's okay, you can be a little sloppy, I'm working fast. Doesn't matter if you cover some of the yellows with some of the oranges. Just to the top, and then as I come down, I'm going to bring in my darker green. Okay, so I'm going to put some darker green in between, using just the tip of my brush. And I will be honest, this is a little more practiced. The more that you paint, the more comfortable you're going to get with your brush. You can move it fast. You're able to fill in these areas. But when you're looking at watercolor paintings, they really don't tell a detailed story. They tell more of a vague story. So you just have to get the idea that there's flowers and green here. You don't have to draw every flower, every stem, every leaf. It's more believable if it's obscure, vague. Okay, so I have some nice greens lines that I've introduced into my flower field, and if you want to shape any of your flowers, you can do that. You can see I'm covering some of those masses that were just too big. Always thinking about what it is that I'm painting. I want it to look like grass or stems, so I'm just going to take my brush. I'm still just with me. Now this lower corner, right corner, is the first, it's like the entry into the painting. It's the first thing your viewers can see. So that's where we want the most contrast. So I'm going to get a really nice deep dark. We'll do that in a second. And I want this to be really dark now. There's a nice puppy right there. And because I have so much color down here, I have the opportunity to get that shaped in. It's never too late to add more orange if you need to. Something about dull. It's much more orange in real life. But I want this to get really dark. So the way you mix a darken the colors, especially green, over here, is to pick the opposite, which is red in this case. I'm take a little bit of red. I have two reds. This one's more pink, this one's more. And I don't want it to look like red. I want it to look like green. It's just a darker version of green. So you see how I grab a little bit of red at a time. Don't go all the way to brown, but go to dark green. Look at how dark that is compared to the one that's straight out of the tube. And I'm going to put this in here. I'm still being very loose with my brush strokes. So it's okay. Things start to come a little together. But look at how the contrast, when I went to my palette and looked at my painting, especially on the screen, I couldn't see the orange. It just looked kind of muddy. But now that I put in this deep dark green, the contrast makes that orange tone stand out more. And we're really going to do this mostly in the right hand corner. You can do a little bit here and there, a little bit over here, but most of it is going to stay in this corner. Great on time. Okay. Now it's super wet right now. It should be. Just bring a little bit of green up here. Again, I'm leading the eye back purposely. Put a little bit of dark green under these fields of flowers. Just draw some lines that are slightly crisscrossy. They're going to dry and look like stems. Again, you're adding texture. Watercolor can be very wishy-washy and not very clear, so you want to create a little more texture in your painting. It's more interesting. Variety is interesting. If it's too dry, put a little more paint in. Here I don't have any water. Poppies are standing out. I'm fairly happy with that. These are just off in the distance, so that's fine. Make sure we have enough time to detail everything in the foreground, because that is fairly important. Let's really quickly and easily, with just the tip of my brush, I'm going to take brown straight out of there, and I'm going to put it in with this orange. Make my red. So, yes, turn there. There we go. And that's it. Done. If it's too dark, just take your Kleenex. See what I found. Back to our sky. So I'm putting my brush in this dirty, mucky water and go back over to the blue one. Again, if you need to warm off real quick, change your water. Go ahead and do that. We have about 20 minutes left. Questions? This is a good time to ask. We've covered the paper paper 100% at this point. I'm going to introduce a little more color to my snap. So strong. When you take the pigment straight out of the tray, it tends to be thick and tacky. I don't want to put that on my paint. And I'm going to keep this. I didn't wet the sky. It's all frozen in. Okay. Go across my sky, which you can't see just yet, but hopefully you will in a second. So I can see it on the screen. Put my blue across the top. If you want to make clouds, you can darken. You can darken the standing out now.
Sheryl, maybe you just want to turn the video off on your personal one and then just because the painting looks a little blurry.
Okay, that might help. Let me try. Stop. Yeah. Okay. Good idea. Thank you. Okay, so you see how I just kind of created this darker edge to show some clouds rolling. Beautiful as it can be, it really ends up being just a supply nectar, right? Our foreground, our bright orange poppies are what put the trees in. The sky's really going to fade. Okay, now we're going to go to our trees, our just our little oak trees. So dark green, the darker green that you have. There it is. Actually mix it with first my blue green too. There we go. Okay. And this is my favorite part. It doesn't matter where you put them. If you have an area of your sky that you really don't like and you cover it, that's great. Same with your hillsides. Off in the distance, they're very, very small. And they're just little tufts. You can have them come down a little bit if you want to have. I'm looking out my window. I have this gorgeous hillside. And it's just a mass of green. And using the tip of my brush. Keep it very simple. Nice and dark off in the distance. But a little bit here because I want to change. I want to have a little bit of darkness on the edge so that the eyes are drawn inward, not off. I leave that blank, just going to bring your eyes away. Come forward and make them slightly bigger. So remember, I made this a little hillside here, so there's a nice bigger one. Here, and they should be all matchy-matchy. That might be 1 or 2. There's something right here. Take a look, make sure it's balanced. Normally I would put things here, but I know I'm going to trees on it. I would put trees over here as well. But I know I'm doing this tall trees that can come up here. So I don't want to spend too much energy there. If you want something really close up, stand and make a bigger one. There we go. That's too round, like I don't. Just going to kick it out so that it looks more tree-like. There. It's okay if you have light areas with white showing through. It's pretty nice. Okay, so I want you to notice that whatever it is you're painting at that moment, what you're focused on is what you're most critical of. If I didn't like my poppies, and I want to sort of reset your eyes and your brain, and then when you look back at your poppy field or whatever it is you're looking at, you can be more objective and critical. And I think that really helps to get you past. So if you see, hit a roadblock, and you see something that you're not happy with, tweak it a little bit, then move away from it and come back later when you're a little clearer. Okay, details are pretty much done. Get some brown and make my big tree. Now, I don't know yet. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is fill my brush with a lot of brown. And I want to break a rule right now because I almost always paint towards me. So if I have something I'm painting down towards my body, I have no control. But with the tree, I want it to be thick to thin. So my brush is naturally going to be thicker. And I'm going to go right over the tape. Okay, and I'm going to drag my brush up. And this time I'm going to put just a little bit of orange so that it's slightly different, lighter. The other one. I want to be a little more thoughtful about this one. I'm going to leave a little bit of space. Drag it up. We don't draw because, you see I'm spinning my brush? We don't draw because we want our tree to look really natural. And then as I pull it up, it's getting thinner. Ooh, let's see what happens here. I love that. So I'm going to go like that. Turn that into a branch. Trees are going to be thicker at the bottom. This is a little too thin, so I'm going to come back and rework it. Very interesting tree. Now I'm going to use just the tip of my brush and do some branches, zigzaggies and flies. This is like a parallel. I don't want it to be too much parallel. I'm going to have a branch that comes over. Look how thin it's going to get, nice and slow. Lift your brush. That takes some patience and practice. How much of the sky you want to cover. Spooky right now, but that's okay. I'm going to have this come up and then down again, so we have another branch. Another tree. And look how sloppy. It's okay, it's a tree. It doesn't have to be measured and perfect. So Lisa, oh, we're going to finish this in an hour. No problem. Trying to keep it real simple. It always takes a little longer than I anticipate. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Take a look at your tree and look for corners and angles that are unnatural. Like right here, this doesn't look quite right to me, so I'll clean that up. There we go. All right. So we don't want to touch our sky again, of course. We're going to let this tree dry before we add the greens. So now I'm just going to clean my brush. And it dries pretty fast, especially in this heat. And I'm going to take some bright yellow, back to my poppies. A little bit of bright yellow here and there, and I'm just going to dash that in. I don't want to cover them all. You can see that my orange is completely covered in brown, so I'm going to get that wet. Take my paper towel, just gently tap it. Don't press. No, I don't want you to. Brush, orange. Put a little bit of orange back here. Wherever you feel like I want to show a little more poppy. Really cute ladybug, whatever. But that's later. That kind of stuff you should do when it's all dry. Okay. So I think this looks like pretty good. Your regular is the key. Just put a little crazy orange. I see something that is a little troubling, and that is I can't really tell that this is a different mountain. So I'm going to turn it into a different mountain. And a little more of that light green. And now I can see that that is a separate hillside. I like to make the trunks look dark green. It just needs to read dark. It doesn't need to read brown. It's too far away. So I'm going to put some little trunks there with just the tip of my brush. They're thick because they're oak trees. They're short and thick. So my tree's pretty dry. It's hot in my room. So it dries quickly. And this next part, we're going to add the foliage. All of these leaves. You can do a lot, you can do a little. Remember, it's springtime, so they're lighter. I'm going to start with my yellow. tip of my brush, and I'm just going to do clumps of dots. And you're going to go in with darker green. You don't want them to be all in pair clusters closer to the trunk. Another great opportunity to cover up a part of the sky that you don't like. Again, just the tip of the brush, move it around often so it changes direction, just kind of like a cookie cutter or a stamp. Leave a lot of open space. These trees are not covered in woods. There's the branches. Start with the lightest yellow, yellows you can put in darker. And yellow is going to mix with blue, which is in the sky. Yellow is blue equals green. And that's exactly what we want. Come down here. It warms it up when you have a frame. It keeps your eyes in the sea. So we can time if you have any questions, wrapping things up. Do a lot or a little on the leaves, and started with light and went into darker. Sometimes I have all these messy colors over here, and I'll just put them back in that cap and muddy that up. Pretty bright. Almost got the brush in my tea. Okay, grab a little. I'm going to just do some little bit of tuft, a little thick. So one of the things I can do is drag that brush in, drag that into something. I'm going a little crazy with that. But like I said, if you have a problem, an accident, turn it into something. Just wetting that down a little bit so it's not as strong. One thing that we did not address yet, 7 o'clock, I'll do this really quickly, is shadows. You can leave your painting, especially if you're a beginner, exactly like this. It's lovely. The sky, obviously the foreground, some trees. If you want it to look a little more finished, a little more advanced, all you have to do is put shadows. And I like purple shadows. Never black, purple. I mix a little bit of green with that purple. It's not white and stark. I'm just going to do little shadows underneath. Always make sure they go in the same direction. You don't have to do the ones that are so far back. I can go right over the road. It looks nice. I skipped a little bit of space there so that there's light coming through the trunk. That purple. And I just think that looks a lot more finished. Alrighty. Lovely painting. So, have a little tiny things that you can do to top your painting. I'm getting my brush wet. I'm going to drag a little bit of water on one side of my tree, and I'm going to lift it. You can see then I have more of a three-dimensional tree where the light is striking it. And that's lifting. Just getting wet. If you lift too much, just like the way that if you introduce light into your painting, it just looks more alive. And you have a little texture there too. This is like too rough. And watercolors are meant to be very loose and vague. You can have a lot more detail if that's the way you like paintings to look. I use a very fine tip pen. So this is a Sharpie. markers. Here that I did this. Of course, you can see how I outlined, but very loose. I didn't try to make it look like a perfect copy, but I outlined everything. The trees. Clean that off before you close. I want to make sure your brushes are clean and clean water. And the last thing I want to do is there's something about taping down paper and then unmasking it that just makes it look so clean and finished. You can see those edges. Don't just tear it off. Go at a 45-degree angle and go really nice and slow. Look. And as your poppy field is drying in, you can see the texture that you created using the back of the brush. So slow because this doesn't tear the paper. If you are doing a larger watercolor and you leave this tape on, the paper there too. But that tape, the glue just ruins it. So don't leave it on for too long. Even if you have to pull it off and put it back. Look at how finished that looks with that white edge. Did you want to continue that signature down there? Here. Well, thank you everyone for joining me tonight. I hope that you enjoyed yourself and learned something new. Most importantly, that you had fun. And again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. If you're not, you can just click off. But if you want to remain and ask a question or any kind of art-related question I can help you with, I am happy to do that. And thank you, Lisa, for organizing everything.